Night Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, it's been a little bit over a week since you guys last had a podcast episode. I know you guys are used to getting new episodes every Monday morning. And obviously that did not happen because most of you guys know, maybe not all of you guys know, but I was in Denver for the Colorado Rapids and Philadelphia Union game. Flew in early Monday morning, and now here we are recording the podcast. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I feel like a lot of this episode is going to be me discussing my trip, talking about my first time ever being that far west, first time ever in Colorado. And of course, we'll talk about the Philadelphia Union and Colorado Rapids game, give my thoughts from that game, play some clips from Jim Curtin's press conference. But I don't know what we're going to spend more time talking about, the trip out to Colorado or the game. And if I had to bet, it's probably going to be about my trip to Colorado. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys don't want to hear about that, so skip forward 30 minutes or something like that. But I'm honestly still speechless thinking about that trip, and pictures and talking about Colorado won't do it justice for how beautiful it really is. And I'm extremely thankful to have got to experience that trip with my sister and Kyle and Jillian Almoney. We met them Saturday and Sunday, obviously. Went to the game Saturday together. Kyle and I went into the press conference in the press box. And then Sunday, we spent pretty much all day hiking and then went back to the hotel and just chilled out for the rest of the night and just talked about how enjoyable that trip was and just being in each other's company. And I try not to get too emotional, but it's special having people in your life that genuinely care about you, that want to do life with you, that have interest with you. And so when Kyle, Jillian, and my sister and I were talking about this trip in January, I think is when the MLS schedule came out. My sister and I, we'd already planned on going out there. And then I got talking with Kyle. I was like, yeah, you should definitely convince Jillian to come out on this trip to Colorado. I know Kyle's been out to Colorado before. I don't think Jillian's ever been out there, she said. And I'm sure they're going to be talking about their thoughts from their trip out in Colorado on their podcast, The One Team We Agree On. So if you guys want to hear their side of things, check out their podcast. And I'll leave a link in the show description. But yeah, I mean, it was just great being out there with them. And it's always fun when my sister and I travel together and go to different cities. Went to Atlanta last year, went to Cincinnati last year. And, that was great seeing some people that we knew from the Sons of Ben out there as well. But we never planned those trips to go with people. And this trip, well, we had Kyle and Jillian also agree, hey, we'll go out there with you guys. And just a ton of fun, and being with people that have the same interests as you, and surrounding yourself with good people. I think that's a major part of life, is just surrounding yourself with good people. And Kyle and Jillian are definitely those type of people. And I can't wait till we travel out the next time, whether it be out to Colorado again, because I know we all enjoyed ourselves so much that we said, regardless if the Union have a game out here again, we definitely want to come back out to Colorado, do more hiking and more sightseeing. And that's what you got to do, honestly. When you go out to Denver, you cannot stay in the city. That can't be your whole trip. You cannot just stay in the city. You've got to get a rental car and you've got to venture out. You've got to go to Colorado Springs, which I know Kyle and Jillian went to. I did not. I'm sure they'll talk about that on the podcast. We went up to Boulder, Colorado. We went to Red Rocks Amphitheater, my sister and I. Where else did we go? Littleton, Lakewood, my sister and I went to. So, I mean, we traveled to quite a few different cities in Colorado. And that's the way to do it. You can't go out to Colorado just for 2 days. You got to go 3, 4 days, maybe even more. And I think that's what my sister and I discussed too, was these 3, 4 days that we were out there, it didn't seem like it was long enough. And I did miss the East Coast flying back Monday morning when we got over West Virginia and just seeing all the greenery, all the trees. And then the closer we got to Maryland, you started to see the Chesapeake Bay. And I'm like, man, I'm missing big bodies of water. Yeah, there's some water out there, lakes, rivers, and whatnot in Colorado, but nothing like being on the East Coast. And you guys know me. I love fishing. I love being on the water. And so it was nice to see the Chesapeake Bay and just all the greenery. But even though Colorado doesn't have that type of stuff, they have mountains. And I remember flying out early Friday morning, going over West Virginia and seeing the mountains. I'm like, okay, these are some cool mountains. I've been to West Virginia as a kid. I don't think I've ever flown over West Virginia and been able to see the mountains when it wasn't cloudy out. And I was like, yeah, these mountains aren't too bad, but yeah, once you get to Colorado and you see the Rocky Mountains, anything on the East Coast just gets put to shame. It's like that's a mountain, like you consider that a mountain. It's like a little hill. That's nothing compared to the Rocky Mountains. And I landed in Colorado early Friday morning. My sister was flying out later at night, 9 p.m. Mountain Time, and so I had to go back to the airport eventually to go pick her up. She had to stay back and finish an exam. Almost done college. Congratulations. She definitely got all the smarts in the family, and a little bit jealous. Just a tad bit jealous. I'm not as smart, and I would say, when she gets into a groove, Shelby, my sister, when she's dedicated to something, like she does not stop. And sometimes, I can put things off, a little bit lazy, and uh, I would argue that maybe she has a better drive with some things. And yeah, I mean, proud of her for about to be done with college. And the first one in my family, I believe, that's graduated from college. And so it's a huge deal. And so really, really proud of her, and try not to get too emotional, right? Just, man, trying to fight back tears. Just really, really, really grateful for my sister and being able to travel and see different places and experience the United States with her. And yeah, it's great when we plan our trips around whatever city of the union are in. But yeah, just being able to travel with her and having the relationship I have with her, yeah, it's really really special. And I don't know, I don't really have any other words to say other than it's really really special, our bond together, and being able to travel around. And so I had a lot of time to kill Friday in Denver when I landed. So I planned on going to the aquarium because when I landed in Denver, it was pretty dark, rainy, dreary clouds. And I thought to myself, I was like, wow, what a welcome from Denver to be welcome to rain after leaving the warm, the sun back in Maryland to now going to rain. But after a couple of hours, honestly, all that cleared up, and I decided, okay, I'll go to the aquarium. Did not happen. Thankfully, I'm not gonna lie. Like, thankfully, that did not happen. I did go to the city because I planned on going to the aquarium, but once I got there, I saw that it was extremely, extremely busy, extremely packed with field trips, and then I guess just people that wanted to go to the aquarium. So I was like, I'm not gonna go to the aquarium, but I'm already down here in the city. I might as well explore Denver. And so I walked along the South Platte River walkway that's in the city. Beautiful scenery. And apparently, it had rained 3 days prior, record flooding or rainfall, I think it was, the day prior at the airport in Denver. And so there was a lot of flooding. And that was kind of wild seeing some of the walkway just covered in rushing water and just big logs and trash just flowing down this river because there's just so much water coming down. And for people that have not been to Denver, Obviously, you have the Broncos Stadium, Mile High, and then you have Coors Field, which is where the Colorado Rockies play. And that's actually in the heart of the city, I would say. Mile High is a little bit outside of the city. I mean, it's still, I guess, technically in Denver, but it's not in the heart of the city. So I decided to walk to both of those stadiums. I think from the aquarium to Mile High was like a mile and a half. Then from the aquarium to Coors Field, it was also a mile and a half. So I walked 8 plus miles, I'd say, on the day in the city, just walking to these stadiums. But as I'm walking around trying to find someplace to eat, this guy's riding around on one of those electric scooters and he stops me and he's like, "Man, can you believe all the flooding that we've had the last couple of days here in Denver?" And I'm like, I'm not from here. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I can obviously see that this does not seem normal, that the river looks like it's spilling over. And so we got to talking about, where I'm from, why I'm in Denver. And so I told him about the podcast. I told him that I'm there to cover the Colorado Rapids and the Philadelphia Union game. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot we have a soccer team." And I feel like that's typical, right? I feel like that is typical. And not just for the Rapids, it's for people in Philadelphia too. I mean, let's face it, people in Philadelphia sometimes don't consider the Union a Philadelphia team because they play in Chester. And I feel like no matter where you go in the United States, if there's a soccer team there, more times than not, you're going to get that response of, "Oh, I forgot we had a soccer team." And so I feel so bad. I forget the guy's name because we talked for probably a good 20 minutes just about my podcast, about soccer, about my initial thoughts and 2 hours of being in Colorado. And it was a really, really enjoyable conversation. Something that does not happen here on the East Coast. People will not stop you on the street and just talk with you. And that was a pretty good introduction to Colorado. Like, oh wow, this is different. This guy's extremely nice, and I'd like to consider myself a nice person. I'd go out of my way and have a conversation with anybody if they wanted to. I'm definitely an introvert, I would say, and I'm not going to go out of my way and just strike a conversation with a random person. But if somebody comes up to me randomly, of course, I'll have a conversation with them. And I wasn't caught off guard per se, but maybe I was caught off guard for how nice this guy was. And driving to Denver, people use their turn signals, people let you merge over. I'm like, this does not happen on the East Coast. People will flip you off, people will cut you off, people will not let you over. Like, people drive so aggressive here on the East Coast, you guys know. And that was not my experience at all in Colorado. And I was like, "Man, where is this on the East Coast?" I put out a tweet like as soon as that happened. As soon as I got done talking with this guy, I talked about how nice this guy was. Talked about the traffic, and yeah, it was just like this. You're not on the East Coast, and I couldn't really see mountains too well because, like I said, it was dreary and rainy Friday morning. But as the sun started to come out, then that's when I started to see everything. And then I finally find a restaurant. I know I'm like dragging the story on. This is how most of this episode's gonna get, or be, I should say, until we talk about the game again. So if you guys want to skip ahead 30 minutes, then that's probably when we'll be talking about this game. But yeah, just stopping in this restaurant again. Same conversation I had with the guy outside on the scooter, asking me, "Oh, you're not from here? Where are you from? Why are you here?" and everything. And yeah, people just out west, out in the Midwest, are 10 times nicer, 10 times nicer than people here on the East Coast. And that is one thing. And that is one thing I'm definitely going to miss with not being out in the Midwest. And definitely going to miss the mountains for sure. Um, Seeing the mountains was something that I've never experienced ever in my life. And it's cool having all these different rivers and creeks, the Chesapeake Bay, the ocean, all near us. That's cool and everything. And of course, you go out west and you have mountains too, but nothing compares to the Rocky Mountains. And there was just honestly like speechless. I don't even know how to describe it. And I'm sure it doesn't matter where you go out and hike, but once you're hiking up these mountains, you do feel it a little bit, right? In your lungs, you're like, this is a little bit difficult to breathe, and you're going up a steep incline, and it gets challenging. But after a few minutes, I was able to adjust pretty well, and I remember going out to Chautauqua Park, and that's out in Boulder, Colorado, where University of Colorado is located. I walked up a little bit over 6,000 feet, and I didn't go all the way on the top of the mountain. Maybe halfway I got up to, maybe a little bit below halfway, but yeah, I got pretty high up there. And I'll post pictures on my Instagram. I posted a ton on my Instagram story, but I'll make some sappy posts or something on Twitter and Instagram for you guys to see these pictures. But again, pictures do not do it any justification. Me explaining my trip to you guys doesn't know justification. And I got up here pretty high on this mountain, overlooking the city of Boulder, the university, looking in the valleys, and it was so breathtaking, out of this world. And if you like nature, if you like the outdoors, I strongly encourage people to go out to Colorado, and don't even let it be just because of a union game. Let it be because you want to experience Colorado. And the views. The views are just simply stunning. And I have nothing to compare it to here on the East Coast. I don't think anything on the East Coast can compare to the view, seeing the Rocky Mountains, climbing up these mountains. Nothing. Nothing compares to it. You have so many different trails out there that you can walk, so many different places where you can go and hike. And um, I do think Boulder was my favorite place that we visited while we were out there, just because it was a little bit different than Red Rocks, where Red Rocks you don't see a ton of greenery out there. You obviously see the Red Rocks, but and you have the amphitheater out there, which was really cool. And if you guys aren't familiar with Red Rocks Amphitheater, all the major bands, all the major singers, all time have played there. It's such a historic music venue, and it was really cool, feeling very accomplished, walking all the way to the top of Red Rocks and then eventually getting to the amphitheater and seeing a ton of people working out. I told my sister, I was like, if we lived out here, there is no reason to get a gym membership when you can get your exercise in, walking up all these different mountains, working out at the amphitheater where people are running on the stairs they have, people are doing push ups, sit ups, doing burpees. I mean, people are getting a nice workout in. And that was pretty cool seeing that they allow you, I guess whoever owns the amphitheater allows people into the amphitheater when there's no concerts going on. And yeah, there was a ton of people just taking in the sights and working out. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. Colorado doesn't have a ton of trees, a lot of greenery. And so I like that kind of stuff. So maybe that's why I like Boulder. But you do feel very accomplished when you get to a certain point in the mountain, you can just overlook everything that you just walked up, overlook these different cities, seeing the city of Denver, depending on, obviously where you are. Really breathtaking. And then some mountains too still had snow on it. I know Jillian and Kyle, when they went to Colorado Springs, they saw snow up, I believe, at Garden of Gods. Maybe they'll talk about that on the podcast. Seeing all the nature and the wildlife in the park, seeing mule deer, What else did we see? Didn't see any bears. Didn't see any snakes. Actually, that's a lie. My sister and I did see a gardener snake, but that wasn't in the park. It was at a restaurant that we ate at in Boulder, and so that's cool. Like we have those type of snakes here on the East Coast, and I hate snakes, so I was glad that we did not see any rattlesnakes. What else? What else? What else? We went to a nature preserve that's right next to Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Saw bison, mule deer, prairie dogs, and there was apparently coyote out there. Again, I've seen coyote. They're all over Joppatown, where I live here in Maryland. So didn't really care if we saw them or not, since we have them here on the East Coast. But yeah, seeing bison, that was pretty cool. I mean, I've seen them in zoos, but seeing them in their natural habitats, just walking along the plains eating grass, it was really, really cool. And yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods Park. I would say that it was a simple stadium, but I think there is beauty and simplicity at times. Great views from the press box. Great staff at Sporting Goods Park. Finally, got to meet Jordan Angeli in person, which I do want to say to you guys. I know I told you that she was coming onto the podcast, and it was going to happen. It was going to happen, but things came up, and we couldn't get our schedules to align, and that's life at times. So Jordan said that she feels extremely bad, which I told her, like, you don't have to feel bad, and she kept apologizing. I'm like, come on, stop it, Jordan. You're making me feel bad. So we'll get Jordan on here eventually on the podcast for all of you guys that wanted to hear on the podcast. But yeah, that was really, really cool, just talking with Jordan for like 20, 25 minutes before she had to do her thing with Drew Moore in the stadium, talking about the game on the big screen. And then we talked a little bit after the game at halftime. So that was really, really cool meeting Jordan in person. She's so kind, and she's just so knowledgeable. I mean, I've said that so many times on this podcast. Anytime that I brought her up, I learn all the time listening to her talk. And I've got to tell you guys, like, she is one of the hardest working people that I know that works in soccer, to call an NWSL game on Friday, then to fly back home and be there for the Colorado Rapids and Union game, work that game, and then fly back out Sunday morning and call another NWSL game. I don't know how she does that. That's an insane workload. And props to her for just having that drive. I talked about it a little bit. My sister having a better drive than me in certain things, and yeah, Jordan traveling that much. I don't think I'd be able to adjust to those different time zones, travel that much, have little downtime. And props to Jordan for just having that drive and being so dedicated to her work. And her and JP Dellacamera absolutely crushed the broadcast on Friday and Sunday, and it was cool. Kyle and I being in the press box, great views, being the only two people in Jim Curtin's press conference, and uh, asking Jim Curtin a ton of questions, and yeah, talking with Jim a little bit after the game. Thankful that we came out there, and the players were wonderful with all the Union fans that traveled out there. I'd say at least 35 Union fans traveled out there for the game, and the players came over, thanked them for coming. I know Ali Bedoya shook the hands of every single person, talked with them a little bit one on one after the game, and you don't get that. You do not get that in any other sport. You don't get that with any other team in sports either, where the players make you feel like you're a part of the team. I remember, like, that was one of my very first impressions when I started following the Union, is they make you feel a part of the team just as much as they're a part of the team. And we're talking about as fans, not as people in the media. And so that was really, really cool, just seeing the players, the coaching staff be so thankful for all the fans that traveled out there. And overall, I would say definitely going back out to Colorado. Don't know when. Definitely, I'm gonna miss seeing mountains, waking up every morning and driving around. Doesn't matter where you look, you're gonna see mountains in the distance. Definitely not gonna see that here. But yeah, seeing seeing water is cool too. And you guys know I love being out on the water. So won't be able to enjoy that much longer though, because flying over the bay and all these smaller rivers and lakes, yeah, that bay grass is starting to grow pretty quickly because it's been pretty warm out here. So it's gonna suck not being able to kayak here in a couple weeks because my kayak, it's a pedal drive. Not that you guys care, and it sucks for trying to pedal that in grass. It gets all over the propeller, and it becomes pretty useless. Yeah, I can use a paddle, but I don't know. I'm lazy. I can do a lot more fishing and covering water with using the pedal drive. That's why I got it. But, if I really want to be out there on the water, then I'll suck it up and use the paddle. But it doesn't happen often. Does not happen often because that big grass can get pretty thick and it gets annoying quickly trying to just move it out of your way. But told you guys, going to be about 30 minutes. Give you guys my thoughts. Maybe you guys listening to me talk about in that trip. Maybe it's going to convince you guys to go out there someday. But yeah, just again, had a blast being out there with my sister, Jillian, and Kyle, and then meeting Jordan and all the other people that just took time out of their day. Jose, also in the press box here, I got to give a shout out to. One of the only people, the only person that covers the Rapids in Spanish. Extremely friendly guy. And that's just how the people are out in the Midwest. Extremely friendly. They're just easy to talk to. They make you feel like you care, you matter, and you definitely don't get that here on the East Coast. So, for you people that are looking for a nature adventure, looking for people that aren't rude, definitely go out into the Midwest sometime. But let's go ahead and talk about the Colorado Rapids and Philadelphia Union game. As we know, the Union came from behind and won that game by a score of 2-1. New formation for the Union in all 3 points. And yes, the Union have played this formation once this season against Cincinnati, but there was 5 different starters Saturday night on that group that had started against Cincinnati. And I think it took the Union a little bit of time to adjust to the formation, but eventually they got the hang of the man marking, finding the passing lanes to open up the Colorado defense. And I'm not sure how well it showed to you guys on the broadcast, but there was times where Colorado were playing a high line, which wasn't giving the Union many passing options up top or through the middle. So the Union had to work the ball side to side and really use the wingbacks and really getting in behind the Colorado defense. And we saw that the Union, the way that they would counter this is just by putting their well, technically 3 center backs they play with, but putting Jacob Glesnes extremely wide right, and then Damian Lowe wide left, kind of playing as left and right backs, even though they were 2 of the 3 center backs in this formation. The Union pushed Beiser and Wagner extremely high up, and they try to create overloads at time on the right side of the field with Bedoya and Beiser, and that's where the space was, and that's where they needed to constantly attack on the right side of the field. That's where both goals came from. And we'll break down all the goals here in a bit from that game. But I asked Jim Curtin, what his thoughts were on that formation, how he thought his team countered against the high press and the high line from Colorado.
I liked it. I think when you play 5 in the back, you gave Mbaizo a little freedom to get forward. You give Kai a little bit freedom to get forward. And the way I word it to the guys, we like to start our attacks on one side and finish them on the other. And I think you saw, the first goal in particular, that happened. We start on the right. It winds up with Kai joining in on the left and finishing the playoff. So very good on that in that regard. The other one I like too. It's a good transition goal. Really good ball by Jack McGlynn, who I thought was excellent tonight. One of his best games. The ball he plays to Mbaizo breaks pressure, and now Mbaizo with a good hard cutback to Julian, who finished it off. So 2 good goals. 2 goals that when you're on the road, the margins are small. Julian had the empty net that I think he probably wants back that could have finished the playoff. Chris Donovan has a play at the end where he just has to square it to Daniel and the game's over. But these are the things we got to get right, because you leave a team hanging around and they can score at the end in the craziness of just throwing numbers forward. So good win, still things to work on, but overall happy with the result.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Union definitely could have won this game by more than a goal. They definitely could have put up 4 goals in this game. Got a couple things wrong, like Jim said, with Chris Donovan not getting the pass right to Daniel Gazag towards the end of the game, where if he would have played a better ball, then Daniel Gazag has a tap in. Now the Union are up 3-1, and now you don't have to worry about, like Jim said, Colorado pushing men forward and defending for your lives and hoping that you can hold on for all 3 points. You had Julian Kranza in the first half. Jack McGlynn plays an outstanding ball to him. Julian Kranza doesn't get in 1v1 situations a ton of times this season, and he gets one against Yarbrough and gets it completely wrong. Of course, like Jim said, Julian would 100% want that back. But how many times have we talked about it in the past here on this podcast? When Kasper Schubelka would get that one really good chance and he would miss it, then he would be taken out for the rest of the game and would be all mental for him. That's not the case with Julian Kranza. We all know he gets a game-winning goal, and that's the difference, right? From a couple years ago to where the Union have been the last 2 years. They have better strikers. They have players that, yeah, we've complained about maybe the mentality of the group, how they're still stuck on the MLS Cup loss to LAFC, but they have fight in them. We saw that Tuesday night against Minnesota United in the U.S. Open Cup. We saw against Colorado where they made it difficult at times for the Union to break down their defense, and that didn't discourage them. The Union go down again in this game. They go down early, but they come from behind twice in this game, and they have fight. And so the whole mentality has changed with this club. I feel like the last couple of years, where maybe that wasn't the case. If they go from behind or if they miss a chance, then they don't get another one. But now the Union, the Union do have a good mentality, and I'll get into questions here in a bit, Kyle, that you asked, because Kyle and I were talking, and he said, you got to bring up these questions on your podcast. I want to hear your thoughts on them. So I'll definitely bring up your questions here in a bit, Kyle, and give you my thoughts. But yeah, I thought that the formation was good. And like I told you guys, I thought the Union did a good job to realize that, okay, we can't really play through the middle because of the high line from Colorado. So we're going to create overloads on the right side. We're going to play with our wingbacks, and that's where the space is. We're going to attack their wingbacks, and we're going to trust our guys can get in behind. Our guys are better in 1v1 situations. And all night long, you saw a ton of space on the right side of the field for the Union. That's exactly where both of the goals came from on the night, was that right-hand side. And Jim Curtin was also asked, okay, well, you like the formation. Now, can the Union continue playing this formation in the future?
Yeah, I think we can use it on the road, in particular, against teams that are really good with the ball, and that we can counterattack. If you can imagine, though, in a perfect world, maybe it's Mikel and Julian up top, so a little more speed. It's Danny to the 10, and now you have insert Jose Ali, Jose Leon, whoever you want to do, Jose McGlynn, as the 2 that kind of hold. So it maybe looks a little more like a 3-4-1-2. You know what I mean? So again, however you want to word it, you could see tonight it was more like it worked out well, because if you think about it now, with Flock as the 6, McGlynn on the left and Bedoya on the right, it's basically the diamond. Again, their responsibilities were exactly like the diamond, and they knew where to be. Okay, so now that was good, and you even saw Danny come when we had the ball, make the top of the diamond. Now the problem with that is, though, you only have one attacker up top, and it's not Julian's not a speed guy. He's not going to get in behind. So depends what personnel you have, but there's some ideas there, and there's a window to, if your wingbacks really attack in a smart way, it can be a really successful formation, especially on the counterattack against, the top teams on the road, which, by the way, when I say top, I mean, you look at the table, that's LAFC, maybe New England and Cincy look good right now. The rest is crapshoot. Everybody's pretty average. So, but it is something I think we can use in the future.
Yeah, and Jim brings up a good point where Daniel Gazlak was dropping deep to get on the ball, and that was one of my big takeaways from the first half, where Daniel only had 17 touches in the first half, and that's something that Jordan and I talked about at halftime, where towards the end of the first half, Daniel, you could tell, was probably getting a little bit frustrated, so he started dropping deeper into that 10 spot to get on the ball, and he ended up with 17 touches as well in the second half, but he's taking touches higher up on the field in the second half. And I think, for a team that doesn't play a 3-5-2, or like Jim said, a 3-4-1-2, I thought they did a good job to execute their game plan. And as this game went on, that they understood where to be. And we'll see if Jim Curtin does play this formation on the road, play this formation against, like you said, the better teams, your New England's, your Cincinnati's, your LAFC's. We'll see if the Union do play this formation against teams that like to hold on to the ball. I know that's not Cincinnati, but New England and LAFC, yeah, they do like to hold on to the ball. And maybe this is something that the Union do going forward, because this is something that we've all been crying for so long. We have three capable MLS center backs. Let's see what they can do. We have two wing backs in Kai Wagner and Olivier Bizo that can get forth, that love creating offensively. So let's see what this team can do. And then the big question, like Jim said, because ideally you're gonna play Mikel Ua up top. There's your guy to get in behind. Julian Kranza is not that guy. You play Daniel Gazdag where Leon Flock is. So Daniel's technically not playing in the 10 role, but he technically could be, depending on, how high up he pushes on the field. And then it's either, okay, do you put Ale and Jose Martinez? Do you put Jack McGlynn in there? Do you put Leon Flock in there? So obviously it's a tough decision who you leave out in the midfield, but I do think this is a formation that can work going forward for the Union. Hopefully it's a formation we see later on in certain points of the season. But overall, yeah, I mean, good on the Union for figuring out, okay, we can't beat Colorado down the middle, but we can. We can beat them from out wide, and that's exactly what the Union did. I thought the Union also did a really good job forcing Connor Ronan to play side to side and backward passes. And when Connor tried to play forward, a lot of his passes were either hit out of play or straight to a Union player. And Connor Ronan was that playmaker on the night. He tried to be the playmaker on the night for Colorado. And the Union just did a really good job limiting his passes where he could break those lines, play guys in behind. And if the Union were going to get points in this game, they had to. They had to take Connor Ronan out of this game. They cannot let him break this team down with his passing ability, because we know he's such a good technical player. Jim Curtin told us that last week in his press conference. And you give this guy time and space, he's going to pick you apart. And so the Union did a good job just forcing him to play square and backwards, clogging up the midfield. Jim Curtin said that was a game plan coming into this game, to clog up that middle. And that's why. That's why we saw Colorado just play a lot of passes with their center backs, a lot of passes out wide to their wing backs. And they try to beat the Union out wide with their wingbacks, like the Union try to beat Colorado with their wingbacks. And you would say the Union had the better wingback play on the evening, where both of the goals came from out wide, like we said. But just really good by the Union to take away Colorado's best player. And Jim even said that they lack a number 10, they lack a playmaker, and that does help the Union. That did help the Union. And I've got to complain about Victor Rivas, the head referee in this game. I mean, he completely lost control of this game. He absolutely loves giving out yellow cards. And he's a referee that, in my opinion, just always makes the game about himself. Gave out 9 yellow cards in this game, 1 red card apiece to Jesus Bueno and Galvin. And you had the fourth official completely botch this game as well, where he puts up on the sub board that it's supposed to be Jesus Bueno coming on for Bizo when it was supposed to be Nate Harriel for Bizo. So Bizo wouldn't leave the field. He knew that Bueno wasn't supposed to be the player replacing him. And so now you have the players pushing and shoving. Bizo won't leave the field because the fourth official messed up who was supposed to replace Bizo. And so good on Bizo for not leaving the field and not coming out when he wasn't going to let his team be at a disadvantage with a player now playing out of position. And that moment led to the big scrummage at the end of the field where Barrios pushes Andre Blake out of bounds. And I know a lot of people said, oh, Barrios should have been red carded. That's never a red card. That's never going to be a red card. We see players get pushed out of bounds all the time, and it's only just a yellow card. But I am surprised that we only saw two red cards from that whole scrimmage. I think Jim Curtin's very fortunate to not have got a red card in this game because I'm sure they didn't show this on the broadcast either, but he ran straight into the technical box of Colorado. And I was like, what are you doing, Jim? Like, Jim had to be pulled back to his side. And Jim was absolutely losing it with his team in Colorado just going at it. His goalie, he sees his goalie get pushed into the board. He sees, you know, his two center backs, Elliott and Glesnes, get thrown to the ground. He sees Bueno get choked, and then we see Bueno gets poked in the eye, he gets spit on. Like I am shocked that there was only two red cards given out. Like there definitely should have been more red cards. Jim Curtin definitely should have had a red card in my opinion for leaving his technical area. A lot more players on Colorado should have seen red as well. And that's what happens. That is what happens when the referee loses control of this match and isn't able to control the chaos. And you have big coming togethers, big scrummages like we saw at the end of the game. But overall, the Union are on a 3-game winning streak, and they've not been perfect by any means, but they continue to find ways to win games. And that's all that matters. That's all that should matter is, okay, are the Union winning? Yes. All right, then there's no reason to really be upset. Yes, you can complain about the way that they're playing, but at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points, right? And as long as they're winning, in my opinion, I'm happy. And it doesn't have to be the prettiest win, but we're seeing the Union continue to climb up that table. They're getting to where they want to be. And Kyle asked two questions that are kind of similar. He said, how much of a benefit is it that the Union can now just focus on the league since they're knocked out of CCL and the US Open Cup? And do you feel like the gym out crowd is warranted? And so I would say it's a huge benefit that the Union aren't in CCL or the US Open Cup. It sucks, right? That you're knocked out of two competitions in the same week, and uh, you're so close to potentially winning a trophy in the CCL if you could have got by LAFC, because then you would have been in the final against Lyon. And if you would have won that, then you're playing the Club World Cup. Obviously, doesn't happen. The U.S. Open Cup, yeah, you're a lot closer to winning that trophy than you are at MLS Cup. So, yeah, it's difficult getting knocked out of both of those competitions in the same week. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. Now the team can just focus on the league. They can continue to build on a winning streak, continue that winning run that they're on, and just get closer and closer to the top three in the East. And then we can start talking about them fighting for maybe another supporter shield. I mean, it's not crazy. There's still a ton of games to be played left in the league. And now the Union can just focus on the league, and then the whole league shuts down for League's Cup. Hopefully, the Union don't take that serious, and you guys are going to get tired of me saying that every time we mention the League's Cup. But I cannot stand that idea of a huge money grab. And then Kyle said, "Do you feel like the gym out crowds warrant it?" No, they're not, because prior to the Colorado game, the Union had played 3 games in 7 days, all 3 games in a different time zone, 6,940 miles traveled, and over 300 minutes played in the last week. And this is a very tired team. The Union have traveled over 20,000 miles in the 9 road games of this season with little rotation, which, okay, fans are justified in criticizing Jim Curtin for not rotating this team. And there is a lot of tired bodies out there when Jim just rolls out the same lineup every single time. But these aren't excuses. The Union have played 17 games already in less than 3 months. And that's more games than any team in MLS. That's half of a season in less than 3 months. That is a ridiculous amount of games and travel already this season. And now with less traveling, with not being in the CCL and not being in the US Open Cup, we're going to see the Union hopefully continue this winning run. And when that happens, then the gym out crowd's going to disappear. And I don't think the gym out crowd was ever too big, and it was only a select few people on social media. And I think majority of this fan base was always gym in. So as long as the Union can continue winning in MLS, continue pushing for that supporter shield, and continue pushing for a top 3 spot in the East, you won't see people complaining about firing Jim Curtin. Quickly though, we're gonna go ahead and skip the goals breakdown segment. You guys can go ahead and watch the YouTube video on that while I'll dive into how those goals were scored. So we'll quickly go over my keys to the game that obviously you guys didn't get the preview episode. And again, sorry about that, guys, and Jordan is as well. But we will definitely give you guys a podcast episode here sometime in 2023. Got to figure out when I want to have Jordan on, and then we'll go over the 3 stars quickly. But if we were going to do a preview episode, I had for my 3 keys defend against the counterattack. Colorado had scored coming into this game 3 goals so far on the counterattack. And we've seen the Union struggle this season with defenders getting pulled out of position when teams hit them on the counter, especially on the right side of the Union's defense. A few times this year, we saw Bizo lose possession, just like we saw in this game against Colorado. Lost possession. That's how Colorado got their penalty. And we see him get caught up high too many times during the season. He didn't get caught up high in this game against Colorado to give up that goal, but he did get dispossessed. And so then you have Jacob Moses that has to slide over, and then you just have chaotic defending from the Union. But I would say that's a pass for the Union because they didn't get scored on by the counterattack. And the Union really didn't give Colorado many times to even try to quickly break out and hit the Union on the counter. So that's going to be a pass. I said number 2, don't be wasteful whenever you get a shot on goal. Colorado may give up a lot of shots per game, but they rarely give up shots that land on target. Uh, Coming into this game, they've given up 21 shots on target in their last 5 games, with only 4 of those shots resulting in goals. And this is 100% a pass for the Union. 2 shots on target for the Union, 2 goals. Both goals came from outside of the 18-yard box, which the Union do not score a ton of. Jack McGlynn had a shot from outside off of a corner kick where Kai Wagner played it short. The ball looked like it was going to be going in to the net, but it was headed away by Abubakar, I think it was. And Colorado did a really good job, I thought, defending inside the 18-yard box, whether that be because they blocked a shot or it's because they quickly shut down whoever had the ball for the Union inside the 18-yard box. They would force the Union to, all right, recycle that ball and try to break down Colorado another way. So, yeah, that's a pass. 2 shots on target, 2 goals for the Union. And number 3, I said, who's going to step up, meaning, which depth players going to make a difference for this team? Who's going to score the goal when Julian Kranza, Daniel Gaza, Mikael Uhre don't score goals? And oh yeah, that's a pass. Kai Wagner opening up the scoring for the Union to get his first MLS goal of the season. He scored 2 previously against Minnesota last Tuesday in the US Open Cup, and now 3 goals in 2 games for Kai Wagner. Definitely coming into form with the Union. And the Union went with that new formation with a 3-5-2. They played Gazag and Carranza up top, which Gazag hasn't played a ton of striker for the Union. And Yeah, I thought they did a good job to adapt to the formation. Like I said, as this game went on, the Union looked more and more comfortable, and so all three of those keys that I would have mentioned would have been passes. And last thing, quickly, 3 stars for the game. Number one, Julian Krause, 1 goal, 1 assist. Decent hold up play. I thought his movement into space was excellent. He did a really good job finding areas on the field where Colorado allowed him to drift into that space and get onto the ball. And like I mentioned, we saw him get that assist to Kai Wagner. He does a good job to hold up the ball to see Kai Wagner free and play that ball to him. And Kai Wagner hits it first time and terrific finish from Kai. We see Julian get that goal, that late run coming outside of the box. He scores, and that's great awareness from Bizo. So Julian Kranza gets star number one. Number two, Kai Wagner, 1 goal, 1 out of 1 tackles, one interception, 3 ball recoveries. Didn't have to do much defensively this game for the Union. I thought Kai did a really good job to keep Nicholson and Abubakar busy with his movement on the left side of the field, just constantly getting forward. Sometimes we would see Kai drift as no, Jim mentioned it. This formation at times looked like we were playing a diamond. Kai Wagner would drift a little bit and play as that left-sided shuttler. And so I think Kai Wagner caused a lot of confusion on that side of the field for Colorado. Terrific finish from Kai. And again, we'll break down all the goals on the YouTube videos for you guys to see. In star number three, Damian Lowe, 2 out of 2 tackles, 7 headed clearances, 4 interceptions, 6 ball recoveries, 7 out of 9 aerials, 1. And yeah, he gave up that penalty kick, but Damian Lowe was so dominant in the air. He got dribbled by 1 time, and after that mistake, he did a really good job to recover and have a real solid game for the Union in the back. And Damian Lowe somehow doesn't get into the MLS Team of the Week, and I know it's not called Team of the Week. I'm not calling it match day. MLS Team of the Match Day. We're calling it Team of the Week. How Damian Lowe doesn't get into that is beyond me, but yeah, he had a really solid game after giving up that penalty kick, and the Union able to get all 3 points in Colorado for the first time since 2013. And guys, I know this was a longer episode. Hopefully, you guys stuck through it. And yeah, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. If you guys made it through all the way, listen to my thoughts from traveling and being in Colorado. Thank you guys so much. If I don't express my thoughts, great. Yeah, just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to express what I saw out in Colorado just with how beautiful it was. And maybe after a couple days passing of being away from Colorado, then maybe I'll figure out how to articulate my words and describe everything that I saw. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. And this week's going to be hectic. Going to a concert Tuesday night. Going to try and get up to the game Wednesday night for Philadelphia Union, DC United. And then we should have a review episode of that DC United game. We won't have a preview episode for DC. We won't have a preview episode for that New England game. So, yeah, I mean, maybe not as many podcasts as you guys normally get when we try to do the preview and review episodes, but we'll definitely get you guys a couple more podcasts out this week with that DC United review episode. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.